We're here at the A-Leaf Center for Advanced Careers, where they teach high school level students all different types of trades, crafts, and technical skills. Got called into the welding department to give them a hand today, so that's what we're going to do. Let's burn some rods. We're here at the welding department at the A-Leaf School of Advanced Careers, and I'm with Mr. John Polk.
I'm one of the welding instructors here at the Advanced Center for Careers, A-Leaf.
Excellent. And we have Fernando, Emilio, and we're missing Jacob today because I actually had to go back and do this intro again, and Jacob's actually not here. And then we have this random gentleman in the corner. We don't have to worry about him, Mr. Zach Clifton. How's it going? Another great instructor. I'm going to do some demos today to help these guys get ready for the Texas High School Welding Series state competition, 5F and 3G vertical up 6010 7018. Let's get into it. The Lincoln Power Wave S350. This is a fancy rig, right? It's got all these bells and whistles and a lot of stuff to try to think about, but you don't overthink it. A lot of these machines have these functions. We can just scroll through these. We've got it set up with our amperage. We're gonna start with the 332 rod. And because we're welding the 5G position where we've got overhead and vertical, whereas a lot of that time we get that undercut and stuff like that, we're compared to flat where everything flows flat and down, where on a 332 in a flat position, I might run 90, 95. But because we're welding in position and having to do some vertical, this 85 down to 80 can be a little bit easier to control. I do like heat though. Amperage is what's gonna lay your weld down, right? It will get to a point where it's too hot, but my preference is gonna be somewhere between 80 and 90 every time, no matter what position for me for 332, 7018. If I go to flat, I'll turn it up a little. But then we have this stick 7018 soft. This machine knows how to weld the 7018 perfectly, right? So we're gonna keep it with the 7018 soft. Go into arc force, this is gonna be your dig. If you go into the positive side, you're gonna get crispier welds. You're gonna wanna have more dig. What do you guys hate whenever you're getting your 7018 welds going vertical? The digging. It digs, it already digs. Why are we gonna add more dig? Let's go away from the dig. This is getting 7018 soft already what the machine wants. This is even telling it to go even softer. It'll go all the way to -10. Now, this isn't something to use as a crutch. Some of the machines don't even have arc force. You can leave this at 0 and be fine, okay? Now, being that we're knowing we're gonna go in position 7018, just going a hair on the soft side might help. But the machine already knows what a 7018 is and already is pushing it on the softer setting compared to the crisp 6010. Then we move on to our hot start. That's just that extra little bit of beans right at the jump of the weld. So that in case you're sticking your rod a little bit, you might can turn up your hot start a little bit to help it get going, get that puddle started. You can leave it off. Some machines don't have it and it's okay to not use it. But if you are struggling, these are those advanced features that can help fine tune it, but it's not necessary. So you can also, if you just see a machine and you're like, I don't really know what to do about it, leave everything off. Don't mess with any of it. Just keep it straight amperage. So we're here, we gotta make sure we turn that on and then we're gonna weld. We're gonna talk about this position here, the 5F. Right? Normally a 5G would be a groove weld, so we've got a groove, but we don't have a groove on the end of this pipe. We're not doing an open root or any grooves. We've got a piece of pipe on a piece of plate, so this makes it a fillet weld. So 5F, right? We've got 3 positions. We got overhead, transition into vertical, and then into flat. It's nice being on pipe that it's a slow transition. It's not like a piece of square tubing where it'd be like, oh, immediate transition and rod angle. We're able to keep that rod angle as smooth as a transition, but we have to make sure we do transition the rod angle. Everyone wants to start up underneath here, come here, and then they just don't change that rod angle and they just start pushing up like that, right? Another thing I want you to notice is, see my hand, my wrist here? As I start pushing, that rod burns. How many of y'all bend your fingers back like that and you can't get any further, right? Almost all of y'all, I know, because everyone does it. Try to find somewhere where you can position not the elbow down, but the elbow where you have more movement, right? This elbow is what's restricting you. You're like putting too much force on it. If you have to get yourself a clamp, get yourself something, keep it as far away from your weld joint as possible, but something that you can brace yourself on, right? Just something, right? Like I can kind of get bound up, put it under my armpit, and I can look at it and I can move now my hands, okay? This elbow on something, no matter if you're welding flat, once that rod burns, you can't push further or your rod angle's changing. So we're gonna maintain that rod angle. Just think of how do you like your overhead? You usually light up and you're just right there, a little bit of a drag. So you're gonna light up, a little bit of a drag, a little bit of a push, right? A little bit of a push. What do you like for flat? A little bit of a drag. Okay, just think of that. overhead, vertical, flat. We'll go a little bit of drag, and then your angle is going to move into a push, and by the time you get to something that's flat, we want to be dragging that rod. Okay, we don't want to come up here and start pushing. Typically, we might be able to get this full rod halfway for this size pipe, this size rod. The trick to this is being slow and close. I want you to think of where dead bottom is, okay, and start ahead of that. Like light up on dead bottom, move backwards to a little bit up, and then get close, and then just slow and close. We're gonna be going really slow with this rod to get the 1/4 inch weld size we need. Light up, come back so we don't have a big cold start. See all that shaking? It's okay. Just use that. We're not doing any circles, no whips, no pauses. Slow and close. And what I'm noticing from our machine settings, that 7018 is soft. Right now, we've got a really soft weld. So again, just trying to go really, really slow. This rod is smaller. It deposits less metal than an 1/8, so you have to compensate to get that 1/4 inch weld size by going slower. Slow, 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 slow. And it's okay if you don't have that perfect push angle anymore. Like I'm running out of rod and running out of room, so I'm gonna stop. See how far I made it? How far do you guys normally make it in one rod? That far or this far? Farther, right? How many of y'all get undercut? Every single time. You have to go slow with this rod in order to let it fill itself in. The 7018 will always leave undercut unless you give it time. Okay? The other thing that we're thinking about is these two pieces of material. This 1/4 inch is thinner than this piece of Schedule 80, right? Or Schedule 40, just by a hair. Which one do you want to point to more? The thicker or the thinner? Thicker. So always think about that. If they're about the same size, dead in the middle, right? But if you notice that one's thicker, just favor that one just a hair. But ideally, this one's going to kind of let that puddle sink into it a little bit easier because it's thinner. Now, it's not going to be a huge thing that you're going to see, but it's something to think about. Now we're off that bottom. I am not going to be on the ground anymore. I want to get off the ground. We've got all that done. We made it like 2.5 inches. So we're going to keep going. I'm going to be able to make it a little bit further on the top, but I got to think about it, right? I got to think for a second, how far am I going to get? Am I going to have to make another tie-in? I do not want to rush weld too fast so I can get one rod in here. I'm going to burn as much of this rod, what the weld needs, right? Not what I want, but what this pipe needs. And I like to go ahead and put this rod angle at the 45 down for a lot of smaller diameter pipe. The reason why is because instead of having to have this angle, again, we're trying to maintain this, right? See how much effort that is to come around and lift my arms up to maintain an angle? Whereas here, the 45 down, I can keep it here and just move just my wrists. It doesn't matter if you strike up way up here, okay? Strike up enough, get this rod lit, come down, and you guys get in here. Come look, come look, come look. You wanna watch that puddle come down and almost go past this. A lot of times, even for myself, even today, I might come down and be like, I think I got it, and then I leave that little bit of a miss. It always is just like, in my mind, I should know I need to pause either a little bit longer. I don't have to come back, but I need to get to about here and wait until I see that slag roll over the highest point of this end. Once I see that, I know I'm good to go, okay? And that should give me a good tie-in. Strike up way up here. I'm coming down. I went way past that hill. I know it's shaky. That's just me. Y'all make me nervous. Okay. Nice and slow. I made sure my little arc marks are still in that little area that I'm going to weld over them and not let them show. But you can drag that rod as far back as you want as long as you weld over all that stuff you put in. Again, going slow, slow, slow. Slow. I don't care if I want to get to the top on this rod, it's not going to happen. Slow and close, that's all you got to worry about. And you notice my rod angle is now towards the drag. Because of that downward 45, I'm now dragging that rod, okay? You should always see that slag kind of pile towards the center, but look how far I made it. I didn't make it far at all. And to me, even this right here, y'all come look at this. Look real close. See that start? How it looks kind of cold? Are you just gonna keep welding? Do you like that? I mean, I don't personally love it. What am I gonna do to change it? It's in the right spot, but it looks cold. What do you do?
Slow down.
No.
Speed up.
No.
Grind.
No. No grinding. We're not grinding nothing.
Are you touching your machine?
Yeah, I'm gonna go touch my machine is what I'm gonna go do. We're gonna take the arc force off -5 because that's the soft setting, because it already says 7018 soft. And then I'm gonna go over to my amperage and I'm gonna get it up to where I like it, closer to 90. Run it hotter, turn the softer off so that it does lay down. Now I'm not gonna see a lot of evidence in this better, maybe a little bit easier because we're on this top, but we'll do this other side and make sure we get the right tie-in. You guys, I'm guarantee you guys are trying to get like 1.5 rods on this side, right? I'm already on my 3rd because you have to go slow with this smaller rod. And it's fine, it's turning out fine. We're getting that weld size we want. And it's not like, it's still kind of tall, like right on the top. I want it to be flat. So how do you lay things down flatter? More heat, more heat. Yeah, that's a better tie-in. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but it doesn't sound like it's struggling as much. That's that soft setting that we turned off. Try not to favor too much of that pipe. We still want to make sure that the fillet weld is evenly on both pieces of metal. I'm gonna go until I start seeing that slag drip a little bit. That's how I know I'm starting to run downhill. I don't want to run downhill. This is an uphill only process. If we look at this tie-in now, see how that looks a lot smoother, okay, compared to this guy right here, where it's a little cooler, okay? And it's just be like, what little thing can I do to make that help me out? So we'll take this. I love a file. The reason why I love a file is because you can get this file in this toe. Y'all look at that real quick. Look at this toe real quick. Not there, you see this like tiny little smidge of maybe undercut or something right in here. Get that, the edge of that file while everything's hot. You just welded this side. You just go ahead and run that file right there. What that's gonna do is gonna give at least the illusion that your toe is a lot straighter than it was, okay? It's what they make you do in a lot of fab shops, so it looks like quality. You know why I call it a Jimmy wheel? Because Jimmy Buffett. Oh. So I'm gonna aim this wire wheel for the edges of my weld more than anything, because I almost want to let this thing push and smear a little bit of that weld to blend it a little bit. So we do have a smidge of undercut on that start, and that's okay. I do believe it's because we didn't have enough heat and it was too soft. It didn't want to lay down because it was trying to not be laying down with that soft setting. Now let's get to this other side. There's no too hard sides to a piece of pipe, especially in the 5G position. Get your clamp, move it. We're just gonna put this old dog right here. To get this bottom, you gotta look at the bottom. Don't look at it like this. Look at it like this. And you see how it's kind of skinnier than the rest of my bead? That is done on purpose because I don't want to have to, if I could use a grinder, I'm gonna grind that little spot, right? And then I'll tie into the grind. But if they don't let us use a grinder, what do? You lay a little tiny start so that you have enough to tie into, cover it up, and it still blends in. So we're gonna start way up here, come down past that, and then kind of weld a little faster because there's already some metal there. And then once I see that I fall off of the end of it, slow back down. Now I got the rod angle kind of more pointed up. I want to look at it like this. You always want to do that little bit of a dry run. This clamp's now good and it's in a good spot. I can start here and I'm going to come back damn near to here and come up. Another thing you can do if you don't like the shaky, because this stinger is kind of worn out. See how it's shaky? You can take that, bend it around like this, grab it like that. No more shaky. Pass to start. Speed up, slow down there. Back to normal, back to your scheduled programming. Keeping it close. I almost want to be touching that steel as how close I want to be. Especially in the vertical position because it wants to dig. If you actually pull away, pull your arc length a little bit further away and look at your machine, you'll see your voltage go up. You're actually causing more resistance and making it hotter as you pull away. That and then the arc length is crazy, and that's how you'll get that undercut. Typically when any kind of these welds, a good indication of your slag is seeing those drips like pretty consistent, like in the middle. If you're off to the side, one side or the other, it's because you're angled to the one side or the other. Now check out the bottom tie-in. It's still got that little chilly bit of a start, and if I could, I would take that grinder and just blend it if they let me grind. If I don't, then it is what it is. It is easy, but you got to just think of one thing. Slow, close, slow, close. Guarantee you, all of y'all are welding in a hurry for no reason. Now, when we move to these 1/8, we're going to be able to deposit more metal and not have to burn so many rods. That's the point of a bigger rod, is so you don't have to burn so many rods, right? These are not often used for a lot of structural welding. It's always a 1/8, 5/32, even 1/4 inch diameter 70/18s. Depending on the application, right? If it's thinner material, this rod is easier to use for thinner stuff, right? The thicker we get, the more metal we need a bigger rod. Now, that doesn't mean I can't use this for this. If the job wanted more production out of me and less material cost, we might switch to the 1/8 rod, because I'll probably be able to get 3/4 of the way. I'll probably get this 1/8 rod to here before I have to stop, or at least halfway. I might only have to burn a rod and a half compared to 3 rods. Here we go. I'm gonna tie in right here. Again, I'm gonna drop down to where I see that high point way back here. I wanna make sure I touch that. I don't need to pause on it. I just need to touch it and then turn back around. That little bit of turn back around is all the pause you need. I'm gonna use the thick part of my glove in my sleeve to prop right here, and that's gonna hold enough heat, not burn myself, but give me a really nice spot to weld. Woo, shaky, shaky. When you wipe that arc, you make sure it establishes way outside of the start area where you want to tie into, and then you get really close. If you stay that long arc, then you get porosity. If you ever see a bit of porosity in your weld with a 70/18, it's likely that you are long arcing it. So if you see that porosity on the start of your weld, that means you're like starting right on top of it. You're not getting close enough. Best getting that little couple pinholes on your start. Woo, my hand is hot. That hand got crispy. You guys know what I mean? You ever see the pinholes on the start of your weld? It's from striking right on top of where you need to, and being too far away, and then you get close. Strike up here, put the boo-boo there, get close, come back, tie in, run over the crap. Okay, every time. If you strike up too fast or you're too far high up, that's how you're gonna get a pinhole with a 70/18. Take that file, knock it off, and then hit that toe. It works a lot easier when things are hot. So if you give it time to cool, it just doesn't do the same. You wanna try to be, don't just like, get in there. Try to be a little bit methodical about it. Try to be nice and neat. One direction with the file is how they say you're supposed to run a file. If you see like an arc strike outside your weld zone, file it, okay? You're not allowed to have arc strikes, right? What do you do if you get an arc strike? You give up? You say, damn, I'm out. No, you hide it. You hide it. No matter if this is a competition or the real world, you will hide it. Run that file on it. I got a little bit of one right here. I'm gonna run that file on it until I don't see it no more. And while everything's hot, then I can take a wire wheel to it and then blend those file marks. Blend those file marks and then we're good to go. The heat, the wire wheel, the file is all your post-weld cleaning that you want to have. Didn't have to take a grinding rock to none of it, but the wire wheel and file should be all you need. Anytime I'm welding with a 70/18, pretty much all I need. Now, when I'm on the bottom, if they let me, I'll almost always grind that cold start down to make it look like this crater, right? That crater is like this. And when you tie into it, you hit it and it fills this in and it makes your bead. Right now, that bottom is like this, right? It's got a big balled up end. So how do you tie up to this? You grind it back down to this and tie into it. If they let you do that every time, pipe, plate, no matter what, grind that start down so it blends easier. If you touch two cold starts, what do you have? Two cold problems, right? So think about that. If they don't let you use a grinder, do your best. Switching to the 1/8, only thing I'm gonna change is this amperage. I'm just gonna bump it up to like 115 being my minimum. And if I think I need more, which I think I do, 120. Why do I need more amperage for this rod?
Well, thicker.
Sticker. I need considerably a lot more amperage. I can't just run those 90 amps. It's gonna spitter, sputter in that little cold spot that we got on the 332 side. The whole weld will look like that, right? So we need heat. How do you get a bead to lay down? Heat. This is gonna lay down a lot more metal because it has a lot more metal in it. And again, these aren't big boy rods. These are 532 and 1/4 inch or the big boy rods. They even make them longer, like this long, because of deposition, production, these sort of things. Like welding on tanks and stuff, like they're welding these big old jet rods about that long, 1/4 inch around, because things got to get done. And taking a rod on and off is not how you get it done. But it's windy, it's blowy, can't use MIG, flux core, whatever. Longer rods, bigger rods.
So when you switch rod, you're not going to change anything.
Don't need to. It's the same rod. It runs the same way. It's just more metal. Now, if I do think that it's digging more because I have more heat now, then I might try to favor that soft again, try to go to that soft. But this machine's picked the soft for me already. I don't want to over soften it. I want it to lay down. So let's start it again here at the bottom. Same deal. I'm going to start dead bottom, strike up, a little bit of dead bottom, come back, get close, slow. You'll notice I might be picking up the speed just a little bit because this is putting down a lot more metal. I'm watching that puddle. I'm going to favor the pipe more on this overhead because of gravity. And this 1/8 rod is really going to want to sag or pull or drop because of the amount of metal we're putting on it. I'm going to favor that. If you guys can see, I'm on that pipe a little bit more than I'm on that plate. Now I'm okay to just sit right here, but I'm getting further away from my face and my field of vision. I'm favoring that pipe. I can see that it's digging, and that's fine. Just stay slow, let it fill itself in, get close. Most people, when they see it dig, they're like, I got to get out of there. And then they weld too fast, and it doesn't fill in. We're going to keep pushing because we're on that vertical. I'm going to start favoring that top plate now because gravity. Okay, but you can see we made it a considerable more distance because of the bigger rod. And that, my friend, is why. Yeah. Okay, bigger rod, lays down more metal. Now what I don't like about this bead is that it's curled in the toes. It's still not laying down on the sides. I'm gonna crispen the arc now to see if it'll help wetten out the sides. I don't really wanna go too much more on the amperage, but I don't like this hump. Or I could try to do a little bit of manipulation, like real fast, like real fast to just try to stay out of the center more, right? The center is taking care of itself, obviously. It needs something on these sides so that it doesn't have this overlapping problem. It's not gonna be a big deal on this right here because we're moving into the flat position. And I know that I'm gonna make it obviously past where I need with this one rod to prevent that shaky start. Just a little thing. I'm gonna break it off past the numbers. Just a little bit of extra rod of chewing up will allow me to be less shaky. And I know I'm gonna have plenty to get there. Going way down to make sure I get that big old tall tie-in. Now, being that this is in a flat position, I shouldn't have a lot of those issues. Now, this is the motion that I'll try to do on this other side. A little bit of side to side, just to try to touch those toes a little bit better. It's not like a pause or nothing, it's just a little wiggle. just to make sure those toes get some love. See how it starts to want to lay down on the toes more? Granted, this is the top. The top is gonna want to lay down because of gravity. Something to think about as you're carrying more metal with a 1/8 rod. And you can see these tie-ins a lot easier too. You can see that that is a lot, I don't love it, right? That's one reason why I would choose a 332 to do this job than a 1/8. Now I'm gonna show you what happens if we do grind this bottom tie-in. Look at how that is bumped, right? That's the start of the weld. We wanna blend it down to look like a crater. I'm gonna grind. So whatever you gotta do to not get sparked up. Okay, now look at it. It's like a little ramp, a little shiny ramp. Okay, so now I know where I can stop and it's gonna look clean and tie in. And also I didn't hold my grinder like this. How many of you hold your grinder like that? To go grind something, you're like this. You. I can't see crap. I can't see nothing around this thing, right? You're like hoping you're hitting the right spot and then you leave all this mess out here. You notice that I turned it over, okay? I can see everything I'm working on, okay? I can see it right over top of that disc, okay? That's how I almost grind all the time. I wanna see it. I look at this side, not this side. I see this side, I can't see nothing. Unless I'm like grinding like this, like on something flat. But if I'm trying to be precise, whoosh. And also we've got an 1/8 inch disc or a thin disc. It's not that big old 1/4 inch bouncing and chattering on the plate. If it's a worn up one, you'd be okay. But if it's brand new, something smaller is gonna be what you want. So let's take this and tie in. I don't think I wanna change anything. Starting the head and then running into my little ramp that I made. So now I'm gonna move into that little bit of a motion, side to side. I would say that was a little bit slower. I might have got a bigger bead on there. But looking at the tie-in on the bottom is what we want to check out. So it did tie in really good. We got that little drop, okay? That was from me pointing too much here on that tie-in and not enough up here in that overhead position. Reading things like that will help you improve. The saying from Jason Becker is make every weld better than your last. Learn from the mistakes. We made a mistake. This is not ideal. I don't want to see that little bump. The tie-in is clean, right? The tie-in doesn't have any like cold areas or anything because we were able to grind that spot, okay? And you can see that this bead isn't as humped up as this one as far as in the center. Not by a lot, but it is a little bit more into the toes. We're gonna use a whole rod here. I'm gonna get my clamp back on because that thing burned up my hand last time. Thanks for watching this demo, everyone. We've got part 2 coming up next with the 3G 6010 7018 vertical up. However, there is the full-blown video that's got even more bits and pieces inside the Weld app where you've actually taken these same tests and done them with different size rods or different size fit-ups. But you're only gonna see that version of this video that's an hour freaking long inside the Weld app. So follow us on this YouTube channel for part 2 and again, go check out the other part of the video, the full thing, inside the Weld app. We'll see you on the next one.